Went into the green share screen at the bottom or top, wherever it is.
Multiple participants. One participant can share at a time. Multiple participants can share simultaneously. Advanced share options.
So I don't know why you have to get into all of that, because just at the bottom of your screen or the top, depending on where yours is, it's a little green button, says share screen. And then I have it as one participant at a time. So if you click on that, it should give you your PowerPoint screen somewhere.
Files, maybe.
So are you using PowerPoint?
I'm using Keynote.
Okay, I don't know anything about that. Is that screen up, like in your computer?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's open. Oh, wait, something's happening. I see your screen.
Okay.
I see one of your dogs flying through the air. And now I see you. Perfect.
So you can see that.
Yep.
I'm going to go through the next slide.
Okay, got it. There's Ben. And then being a handler. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Whew.
Holy crap. I'm going to close the plugins.
Okay. And
this,
go ahead.
Trying to see if I can just trying to get everything situated here. Like I said, I'm not technically savvy.
I think most people realize that that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
For most folks. All right.
And I'm trying to eat my breakfast real quick.
You've got time. I'm not even opening it up to the public until 11:25. So they're all standing by. Well, there's only 6 of them in the waiting room right now.
Okay.
So they can't see anything that's going on in here or hear anything.
They can't see my nonsense.
Nope, they can't see anything. All right. Let's see.
Maybe I should get a light. Let me see if I turn the lights.
Started here. I know some of you are on your lunch break, so we want to make sure that we get you back to work on time. Anyway, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you all for participating in the 4th of our virtual ICDP Disaster Symposium presentations. This is the last of our presentations for 2020. My name is Barb Clark, and I am the Training and Exercise Manager for the Intermountain Center for Disaster Preparedness, and we're located here in Salt Lake City, Utah. As we embark on our brave new world, we hope that you will find some comfort in hearing how others have dealt with various disasters and tragedies and have come out the other side stronger and wiser. Although the networking opportunities are not the same on this Zoom platform, if there is someone that you would like to connect with that you can see is attending this, please let me know and I'll do my best to connect you. Okay, on to a little bit of housekeeping. Following this presentation, you'll receive a survey from SurveyMonkey so that you can tell us your thoughts and help us develop a stronger symposium for the future. We all hope that by next year, we'll be in a position to return to in-person gatherings and host this live and in person. Please make sure that your computer is on mute. You can keep your video on or off, whichever you prefer. If you would, though, please change your name so that it includes your first and last name. That way I can give you credit for attending the symposium. If you're not sure how to do that, go ahead and click on participants. And then when you see your name pop up, just go ahead and hover over that. You'll see a little blue box that comes up that says more. Click on that and then it'll give you an option for renaming. You just type your name in and as you would like to see it. Also, if you are joining us with a group, please make sure that you send me your group name as well as how many are attending. And if everyone needs to get credit or wants to get credit, make sure I get all of their names as well. And you can either put that in the chat or you can send it to my email address, barb.clark@imail.org. And that is also listed in the chat. If you're joining us by phone, please make sure you just type into chat if you can, or send me an email later that tells me who you are. If you need a certificate of participation for this course, please make sure that you email that to me. That way I will have your email address to respond. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and post them in the chat area. If it's something that's critically relevant to the conversation that we're having at the moment, I will go ahead and interrupt our speaker. Otherwise, we will hold questions till the end, and then I can ask your questions for you, or if we have time, you can unmute yourself and verbally ask your questions. So again, I just want to thank you for your continuous support of the Intermountain Center for Disaster Preparedness. And if we can be of service to you or your organization, please feel free to reach out to us at any time, and we'll do what we can to help you. All right, so now without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into our presentation. I'd like to introduce to you today's speaker. His name is Eric Darling, and he has been in the fire, EMS, and disaster service for over 20 years. He's a retired firefighter and is currently a disaster canine handler for California Taskforce 5 and a regional task force out of Ventura County, Regional Task Force 7. Currently, Eric is working 4 canines that are certified at the federal level. 2 of the canines are live find disaster search dogs, and 2 of them are human remain detection dogs. He's been deployed to numerous local, state, and federal incidents during his career. When Mr. Darling is not working as canines, which really isn't that often, he is the founder and owner of Superfit Canine. Superfit puts on realistic disaster trainings all over the world for canine handlers to improve their skills and to add the real world element. Along with training for the next disaster, Mr. Darling volunteers his time to foster and whelp future disaster working dogs. To date, he has whelped 7 litters of puppies for the Penn Vet Working Dog Center and is currently fostering a pup for another nonprofit organization. There's always room for one more pup or one more litter at the Darling family. So I'd like to welcome Eric, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, Barbara, appreciate you all asking me to participate. I'm honored and humbled to be able to speak to everybody. And yeah, you stated in the intro, one more pup. Well, yeah, I just added 2 more 9-week-old puppies that are running amok in my backyard that will eventually be either live find or human remains in the disaster world. So yeah, there's always room for one more dog. So I will keep. I'll try to do my best to stay on task for everybody. I know most of you guys are on lunch break. I'm here to just share some of the stuff that I've done and how we prepare for it. I do know there are some handlers that are participating in this and some people that may want to be handlers. By all means, please ask any types of questions you want. You can also get my information at the end of my slideshow. It has my contact intel as well. So without further ado, I'm going to start, and if anything goes awry, it's 2020, and I apologize now. So yeah, as Barb said, I'm with California Taskforce 5. It's a FEMA task force. It is based in Orange County, California. And I'm also on the regional task force, which is a state level urban search and rescue team here in the county of Ventura. And in the state of California, we have 8 FEMA teams, and I believe we're now up to 16 regional task forces within the state. I just pushed the button. Why aren't you working? Uh-oh. Barb. Aha. Stand by.
As Eric said, it's 2020. Anything.
It was, we had it working.
I saw it work.
Well, I'll blame Patrick. It's okay. Stand by. I am completely locked out. Did I just go to stop sharing and do it again?
Yeah, why don't you try that? Sorry, folks.
Sorry.
Wish I could help you. There. Okay, now you stopped.
Haha, yay.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Nope, we just see you now.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, stand by. Go back to Zoom, go back to share screen.
There we go. Yay. Okay. You're in a couple slides.
Okay, let's see. If I push play, is it going to work? Now are we all good?
Yep.
All right. See? It's
Now
not
we
my
see
fault.
Ben.
All right. So, as I told you, it's 2020, and who knows what's going to happen on the next slide. So, I currently do have 4 certified federal dogs. I have Ben, who's 12 and a half years old, Quackenbush, aka the dude, who's a young man right there in that photo, Wyatt, and Maisie. This is not the norm. Most people don't want to have this many dogs, but it is a lot of fun. And when you get to do both live find and human remains, it's definitely challenging, but it also, for me, it really helps. Live find dogs obviously find people that are still alive in a disaster situation and or in a wilderness situation. And human remains, and forgive me for just going down basic road, but that's anybody that has passed away. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. All right, let's try this again. We're going to pause. Did you guys see that?
We still see the 4 federal certified canines.
Because it just changed for me. Okay, what do you guys see on your screen now?
It's
The same thing.
Yeah.
Stand by, sorry. Okay, what do we got now?
So you've got the slide deck on the left.
Then I'm going to keep it that way. For some reason, when we go to full screen, it's not working.
Okay.
So sorry.
Okay.
All right. So what is it to be a handler? Really, being a handler is someone that works with the canine. We have the training and the education for our task. As you saw on my screenshot at the beginning, it says I'm a canine search specialist. All federal handlers and most state handlers have to go through it used to be a 1-week class, canine search specialist school. They teach you how to be a handler, what to do, and how to perform your task. And in order to continue on, you then have to pass certifications. And in the federal system, we have to pass a recertification test once every 3 years. And there are different styles of testing that we have to do. Sometimes we're on rubble piles. Sometimes if you think of the gigantic pallet facilities that you might have in your community, we'll make a disaster scene out of those. It's just different things that we might see in the real world that we have to test for. So that happens once every 3 years. We have to have the education, like I said, but then you also, not only do you have to have the education, but you have to know how to have the bond with your partner. They are your partner. They're not just a dog. They're not just a tool. They have to be able to trust you and feel that you're going to be able to put them into a situation where they're going to be able to do their job at hand, but at most of the time be as safe as possible for them. Then you also have to be the advocate for your canine. You have to trust your dog. The dogs can't speak, but with all the training, and we'll go down through in the slides what training you have to go through, but you have to trust your dog. You have to trust your training. You have to trust the avenues that you put them in, that when they say, hey, there's somebody here, that you can then in turn tell the people that you're working for, this is what we have, and this is why I'm believing my dog, or as I call it, and some of you know, trust your dog. You're also the medical provider for your partner. You're a teammate, not only to your canine, but to the entire team. And there's no difference on being a canine handler and being what you all do at your day-to-day operations, your job, what you volunteer for. We're all doing it for a reason, and we're all doing it because we want to be able to help. That is basically being a handler. But those key points right there are just different aspects of what it is that you're going to be doing when you go out there and work in a dog. So the question is, did everybody just see the screen change? I just want to make sure that that
Yes.
works.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry. So what does it take to be a handler? You got to have drive, dedication, passion, and you have to have the desire. You have to have the desire to know that you're going to be putting all this time and effort in training your dog. You're going to spend 18 to 24 months before you're able to certify with your canine partner on average. And your dog might work 8 to 10 more years, but you have to understand that you may never deploy. So you have to have the desire to want to help somebody, knowing you may never go out there. Because let's be honest, to see this face is not very pretty as it is on Zoom. But if you see me in real life, that means something bad has happened. And that's why we train for the worst, hoping that you never have to see us and our dogs in true environments. You got to have the passion, which goes back to the desire of all I want to do is work my dogs and be able to help any way as possible. The dedication, well, you don't get paid to do what we do. We're all volunteers. Yes, we do get paid at the federal level if we get a federal deployment, but those don't happen very often, which is a good thing. So you're doing all this pro bono because you just want to do it. You have the drive, you have the desire, you want to be able to help your fellow person out. And then going from bottom up, the drive, you have to wake up every morning and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And if your answer is, oh, I'm not sure today, then you don't have the drive. You don't have the desire to go out there and do it. You have to wake up every morning knowing I'm going to go work my dogs, or I'm going to go out there and do as much as I can in a true disaster to make sure everybody comes home. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, but that's what it basically takes to be a handler, are those 4 bullet points. Now that's just my opinion. That's not anywhere in a book. That's just how I feel, and that's how I work my dogs, and that's how I work myself when I go to training and then when I actually deploy. But there's more than just that. You also have to be able to mentally prepare, because as some of you have seen in your different roles, it's pretty tough and taxing on the body and on the mind for the jobs that we're doing. With me working both live find and human remains, I'm seeing both gamuts, which is great, but it does take a toll, and I'm very open to talk to people about that. But how do you prepare for it mentally? You have to ask yourself these questions and know that this is why you're doing it. Knowing I'm out there, knowing I'm doing something to help the community out. It could be just passing out bottled water. It could be having a phone tree. It could be helping people out online. But knowing that I'm out there mentally prepares me for the task at hand. Also knowing there's loved ones out there. They could be mine. They could be a teammate of mine that's family that lives in the community that we're going to. Those are the things that I process when I'm going out there. So when I tell myself, hey, don't worry about the task at hand. We're going to go find somebody's loved ones. You're bringing closure, knowing that I'm going to the worst case scenario and I'm either bringing somebody home alive or that has passed away. There's at least closure for the family. And that's the other key point for me is everybody out there, regardless if they still talk to their family, they have family. And it could be neighbors that are their family. So I have to go out there and I have to do the job. The other handlers that are at the federal and state level, that's why majority of them do it, because there are family members and it's themselves. And ultimately, everybody comes home. Everybody has to come home. So if I do those 5 key points on a daily basis, when I deploy, when I'm in the rack at the base camp, that's what prepares me mentally. So it keeps me grounded, keeps me at the task at hand. Also, if I saw something horrible during that day, if I just tell myself those 5 things, I can push that aside and then wake up the next morning to continue to work. Um, Normally, it doesn't happen on the first couple days, but you never know what you're going to see. I'm going to show you guys 2 slides and just want you to look at it. This is at the campfire a couple years ago. Actually, yesterday was the 2-year anniversary. But that's doom and gloom if you sort of look at the photograph. It's overcast, it's foggy, everything is burnt out in front of you. And I'm not going to go into if we found anybody in certain spots, but we may or may not have found people in these areas. And it could be traumatic. But if I go back to those 5 points of how to prepare for myself mentally, I can look at this and continue to work. I can walk up to the scene here and go, my guys and gals are working to make sure everybody comes home, because there might be a loved one in that particular spot. Full disclosure, there was nobody in there, but we had to check it out due to things that we saw. But those are the things that you have to ask yourself, in my opinion, to keep yourself grounded, keep yourself safe, and to ensure that you're doing the task at hand 110%. But I'm going to go back up to this photo here. I mean, obviously we're not in live, so I can't get you guys' comments on it. But that's a pretty dramatic photo. If you just walked in there and you saw that for the first time, who knows what's going to go through your mind? But that's why we practice, and that's why we train. And that's why if I ask those questions, and if I ask my teammates those questions, I know that we all can go out there and do the task at hand. So there's preparing for it mentally, what it takes to be a handler, but then how do you physically prepare? Now, this is just Eric's school of thought, but you train 4 to 6 days a week. And that's not just taking the dog out for a walk. That's not just, climbing ladders in the backyard. You truly have to train 4 to 6 days a week for these dogs to be proficient, pass their test, but to ensure that any moment when the bell goes off, that we can go to work. On the West Coast, we never know. And for you folks in Utah, you're getting earthquakes now. We don't know when the ground's going to shake. So we have to be ready to go. And that 4 to 6 days a week training, it could be a 15-minute training, or it could be a 4-hour training. It could be just doing physical fitness for the dogs and for myself. I can't be out of shape and overweight and expect my dog to be able to do all the work. So that's training with your gear on, training with your helmet, training for real life scenarios. You don't just show up in shorts, boots, t-shirt, and a helmet and go run your dog and not go through the steps and not have the equipment that you will have in real life. Because once you put 45 pounds on you, it slows you down. Then you also have to train as your life depends on it, because it does. So if we're only training in the same spot, let's say we only train at Home Depot, and I'm only training in their wood pile there and only walking around, I'm not exposing myself nor my canine to different elements, to different climate temperatures, to wind. So traveling, I travel probably about 42,000 miles a year going to different trainings to expose myself and my canines to different elements. So I know how to work into it. I know what it feels like to be in the snow in Utah wearing thermals and everything else, trying to stay warm. But then I also know what it's like to be 110 degrees, 90% humidity training in Florida. So those are just the different aspects you have to do to physically prepare for it. For the dogs, we do fitness with our dogs. We do underwater treadmill. We do land treadmills. All my dogs every day get 20 minutes each of physical fitness. And that's stretching them out, having them do basically sit-ups and push-ups and different unique situations that they have equipment now out there for dogs. That's what they do. They're athletes. They're not just the dog down the street or the 200-pound Saint Bernard. These dogs are true athletes. We treat them like athletes. And we train them like athletes. Another thing that I do to prepare, and a lot of task forces do this, is if you can think it, train for it. So if you walk into, let's say, a construction site and going, hey, I wonder what would happen if that cement mixer was on its side, oozing out cement, and cars were on top of it, how would my dog do that? Well, I thought about it. So let's set it up minus the concrete oozing out. So you're constantly thinking of the worst case scenario and finding ways to build the worst case scenario to train for it. Because the only way we're going to be able to do our job at hand is to think of it. We never know what we're going to see. You might have a building explosion. You might have the earthquake, the tornado, or the hurricane, the plane crash. Who knows? But you can't know what you're going to run into. So that's why we think about it. We brainstorm, we write things down, we ask each other questions. In the canine world, we're a very small community, and we all will call each other up and say, hey, I thought of this. Have you done it? Or have you built it before? So that beautiful thing about our world is we all want to be the best that we can be, and we all want to share the same information. Hopefully that's making sense to you guys. The next thing you're probably asking yourself is, how does the dog work? Well, let's skip that one. To me, it's real simple. And you guys might have questions afterwards after we go through this. Our dogs work on or off lead. And what I mean by that is sometimes, and you'll see some photos, our dogs have to be on a leash due to safety. It could be voids, it could be the concrete mixing plant that we went to once before, where if they fell down, they were gone. They would just get sucked into the sand. So we'll work them on or off lead. But if they're on lead, they will have a collar around their neck because that's what the leash connects to. But normally, when our dogs are working, they don't have anything on them. We call it basically searching naked. And you'll see in some of the photos, there's too many what ifs that could happen with their dogs where they can get hung up on rebar, they can get tangled up in cables, Cat5 cables if it's a business complex, and electrical. So we don't want anything that's going to hinder our dogs to work. And what our dogs do is they use their nose. They look for the smell that they can't see. So a live fine dog, for example, is trying to find the human that is buried, trapped, or somewhere inaccessible that they can't see, and they're smelling for them. Everybody gives off some type of smell, and their dogs are picking up on it, the live fine dogs. So we'll send them out there, and they'll go through whatever it takes to find you. And when they find you, their trained final response is a focused bark alert. And what I mean by that is our dogs, when they find the person they're looking for, is going to bark their brains out. Just sit there and bark and bark and bark. There's multiple reasons why we do it, but the bigger factor of why we do it is in a disaster, it's very loud. You have generators running, you have men and women working in other sectors, you have radios going off. If the dog just sat, we would never know because a lot of times we can't see our dogs working. But if we hear them barking, that tells the handler and our search managers, hey, there's possibility of somebody in this vicinity. So let's continue working. So that's why we have the focus bark alert. With that, once our dogs find either the person alive or this deceased person, their reward is a toy. Every dog has their own unique toy. And what I always tell people is if you have kids, grandkids, or yourself, and you have your favorite video game or your favorite book, and you only get it when you did something really well, well, that's what happens for our dogs. They only get these specific toys when they find the people they're looking for. So we don't give them food. We don't do food reward once we're certified for the most part. There's different factors of why we don't. And one of them is we don't want our dogs, because they are dogs, to stop at a refrigerator or a freezer, or if it's a Burger King, and stop and eat the French fries or the hamburgers or whatever other foods there. Because they are dogs, the potential for them to do that is great. So we train not to have food given to them as a reward, and we train them with a hose toy or a bumper or a stuffed animal, a rubber chicken, whatever your dog likes, that's what we're going to use. Because the last thing you want our dogs to do is to be on scene, work our dogs, and we're there on day 7, and they find a bunch of hot dogs that are spoiled, they eat it, and they get sick. So with that, The other questions that we get is, how often do you guys work? Well, we go out with the task force. We work a 12-hour shift. It could be day ops or it could be night ops. Doesn't matter, but it's a 12-hour shift. And our dogs will work 20 to 30-minute intervals or less, depending on what they're doing. Also, depending on weather, climate, and what we're searching. If it's a building, we might only do one floor. If it's a street or a full-blown like country club community for the senior citizens, we might run a little bit longer. If it's intact, if it's not intact, we might run shorter. But weather really makes the factor, because if it's super hot, just like the dogs, we get tired, they get tired, they have to be hydrated, and they also have to get their snacks and be fed as well, because they can't just work off the caloric intake that we give them at breakfast and at dinner. And it's one handler for one canine. And what I mean by that is, just because we show up as a team with a bunch of canine handlers doesn't mean we can work each other's dogs. Can we in training? Yes. But in real life, being certified, each dog has to be certified with said handler in order to be deployed. And hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But there's more than just that, what our dogs do. Yeah, we find the human remains, we find the people that are alive, but our dogs perform double duty. They're also therapeutic dogs, not only for the people that we're finding, but for the workers themselves. It's very taxing on the body. And I'm going to show you some photos of, and I'll give you the backstories of them. But it's, if you have any animal, dog, cat, bird, reptile, they're comforting and you feel at ease and at peace with them. Well, when we're deployed, our dogs are also therapists. They do tremendous work finding the people we're looking for, but they also help rehab and mentally recharge the men and women we're deployed with, that are our teammates, but that are also the strangers that we're going to meet. So this photo here, this is a battalion chief. This was actually taken up at the North Complex 2 months ago. And we were searching a particular building, and this gentleman here was doing damage assessment. And so I was talking to the chief, explained to him what were going on. Maisie was in a downstay. That's my HR dog, Maisie. She was just in a downstay, and him and I were talking, and he goes, "Do you mind if I talk to your dog?" And I said, "Yes, sir, by all means." So I called her over, and as she was walking over to him, he goes, "Yeah, I lost my house at the campfire 2 years ago, and I lost my house here on the North Complex, and I'm having to do damage assessment on all my friends' homes. I haven't seen my house." I think he said he had not been home because he's been on all these fires for about 62 days. So him and Maisie sat, and that's one of the photos that I took, and I purposely posted that one because you can't see his face. They spent about an hour together, and it was no pressure on my side to get my dog back. He just sat there. I left him alone, and whatever he said to her, and whatever she said back to him, she said back to him. But he came back with a smile. He seemed a little bit more recharged, and he expressed his gratitude as I expressed mine to him, especially for the losses that he had. But it's double duty. It's double duty for what our dogs can do. Um, this photo here, this is a gentleman from California Task Force 3 with Maisie. This is, day 3 or day 4. And she's just out there greeting everybody. "Hey, how you doing? Everything good?" And he's smiling and he's having I hate to use the words having a good time because we were deployed, but that's that recharge. That's what our dogs do. This photo here is, you would think with the young military lady right there that this is all good. This was Hurricane Matthew, and she had just found out about a half hour before I met her that her family lost their home during the hurricane, and she's deployed, and she was with us, and So she just goes, "Can I hang out with Wyatt?" And I took this photo. She's super happy. It recharged her. The gentleman with Wyatt on that photo, Wyatt looks pretty ragged. That was like day 9 at the campfire. But that's a photographer, news reporter that's been out there for about 3 weeks, hasn't been home, hasn't seen his kids. And he probably spent about 30 minutes with Wyatt, just hugging him, getting kisses, and just relaxing. That's why I say our dogs do double duty. We love to search, we love to work, but we also want to make sure everybody's taken care of. In this photo here, I think this was Hurricane Maria or Irma, I don't recall. And this is day 12 or day 13. Oh, Irma, because this is because we were at Harvey and then went straight to Irma. And the guys are spent. So Wyatt just jumped up on his own and chilled on the park bench with them, and they just had their conversation. That's just what our dogs do. Um, Barb, do we have any questions yet before I go into the actual deployments?
No, the only question was someone wanted to see pictures of the dogs. So I think you're satisfying that comment.
Well, just don't tell Ben that a lot of these pictures are Wyatt. It's all good.
Will do.
All right, so now I'm going to go through and what I'm going to ask everybody to please do me the favor. I know this is being recorded, but please don't screenshot any of the photos of the homes. You can screenshot anything else you want. It's okay to be videoed because I know that's being done, but try to keep it contained. And also, yeah, that's about it for there. Let's talk about the campfire. Campfire anniversary was yesterday, 2 years ago. We got deployed up there as a regional task force. For in case you all don't know what the campfire was, this was in the city of Paradise in Northern California in Butte County. One of our worst fires to have happened, our worst fatality fire. This fire was cooking and this fire went fast. And unfortunately, we lost a lot of souls on this fire. I was on this search for 10 days. We searched 1,200 structures. We recovered human remains. This is the first deployment of its kind in the state of California. Obviously, Washington State had their slide a few years prior, but this is the first time the state of California and really outside backdrop Texas that we had such a large volume that was destroyed by fire that they had to bring in federal and state human remains detection dogs to come and do some work. Our weather there was extremely hot. First day we got there, there's fire still burning on the north flank and in the areas that we were at. Two, it snowed on us, it rained on us, it was cold, it was miserable. But that's why we train for the worst. And that's why we train with our gear on, because we never know what we're going to get ourselves into. So this is Wyatt on day 1. The reason why I'm sort of showing you all this on the campfire, I just want you to see the progression. Because some of the things that we do get asked is, do our dogs get depressed that do human remains? It's a job, and that's the only job that they know. So I'm not sure that they're actually getting depressed as much as they're getting tired like the rest of us. But this is day 1, Wyatt's ready to rock and roll. We're on the heavy rescue, we're heading on out. Day 6, he's tired. I was tired. We're covering a lot of structures. We're doing a lot of work, seeing a lot of things. And, but I still played with my dog. He still gave love to everybody. And he never stopped working because our dogs have this drive and this mentality to do their job to the best of their ability. And some people question me on this day about, hey, I don't think Wyatt's mentally into it. I said, no, he's fine. He's tired. We're covering, and we did 1,200 structures in 10 days. That's a lot. It's a lot for a human to have to do, and let alone a dog utilizing his nose. But you'll see on night 7, he got a good night's sleep. He looks a little bit better. He's not as ragged. And this one, which was on the first picture, this was day 8, and he's still looking pretty sharp. And but what we did at the campfire was we did mobile homes, track homes, log cabin homes, regular built foundation style homes. This fire decimated the city of Paradise, and it also decimated a bunch of other towns around it. We were the only task force assigned to this city. One of them areas that we had to cover was the senior community. It was over 220, I believe, modular homes, and that was a lot of work. As you can see in this photo here, there wasn't anything left except for the walls. Some chairs made it. So we're looking for cremations. We're looking for bone, obviously, because the fire burnt so hot in this particular incident. And this is what our dogs are trained for. This is how we train for worst case scenario, which is why we train at your local fire department's training centers and their burn buildings, so our dogs get used to it. It's hard to tell in that photo, but Wyatt's not wearing boots. You do see an orange collar on him. It's because I'm using a GPS um, on this particular structure because of the size, and there's actually a basement in there. He's not wearing respiratory protection like we're wearing respiratory protection. It's because our dogs can't wear booties and be able to maneuver in certain areas because, unlike us, you know, we have our flat feet. The dogs use their nails to pull up, and when you put the booties on, they lose that dexterity. And this wasn't hot. Obviously, each time we went in there, we made sure there was no hot pockets. And also, we don't put a mask on them because we can't. But what we do is irrigate their nasal passages, clean out their eyes. At least I did on this incident, about every 15 minutes. And every time I left the structure, I did a very quick, gross decon on my boy. And here you can see Wyatt's on a line as I'm walking down from this particular building. It's raining, and the walls on the Charlie side were giving way, but due to what we found, we felt the need to check the windows. And in order to make it safe for Wyatt and myself, I was the only human allowed up there. And Wyatt was obviously the only canine, so I kept him on that lead just in case I had to pull him out. What else can I say about the campfire? It's a lot of men and women did a lot of good work. All the dogs that worked kicked butt, and the training that we all do paid off. The support from the task forces paid off, and from your local government. It truly is a team effort. This is not, look at me, I'm the canine guy. It's the men and women that are sifting through the ash. It's the men and women that are pulling walls down or shoring them up. If going to give any credit, I'll give credit to the dogs, but it's really all credit to the men and women that are doing the job. Just recently, we went back to Butte County, back to the city of Paradise is actually where we staged. And we had to go back and do the same thing. Another fire went through called the North Complex, took out the other towns that didn't burn during Paradise and got stuck doing the same thing. We want to talk about preparing mentally. It's called deja vu. When you go back and you're sleeping in the same building that you slept at 2 years prior, that at the same state fairgrounds, utilizing the same showers, driving the same road, utilizing the same gas stations. It's very taxing on the people that had been there before. But as I stated earlier in this presentation, knowing why we're there keeps you going and makes you do your job. So this was a 7-day search, 300 structures. On this particular deployment, there was only 4, 5, 6 canines working this facility. It's a little bit different than Paradise because this is more spread out. This time I took Maisie instead of taking Wyatt, and we were dealing with a lot of agricultural, illegal marijuana grows, legal marijuana grows, and just people that don't want to be found by the government is where we were searching. And there's this beautiful cars that were destroyed during the fire. But in this next photo, you're going to see this is not because of COVID. We did take COVID precautions, just like everybody is doing right now. But the amount of wind that was up there and everything was blowing in the air, and with all the illegal marijuana groves, we really had to protect ourselves. This was a unique situation because unlike going up to the campfire, we weren't worried about illegal drugs. This one here was could have been very detrimental to a lot of people. And for our dogs, we did a lot of decon, especially the nasal passages, and making sure they didn't get high. Those are things that you don't think about, but you have to make sure that the dogs didn't eat any of it, which is again why we do a host toy and not a food reward. And just check them out just to make sure there's no way that they got into any cannabis. Here's just another photo of Maisie working. You'll see right here, she did lacerate her foot pretty bad. Put a boot on her. I know a little bit ago I told you they can't. However, the difference is that was a necessity. She still had 3-wheel drive instead of 4-wheel drive, and then to make sure that it was protected and to keep her in service because there's no reason to be out of service. Just put a boot on her. And these beautiful people are the people that we were looking for. No trespassers. Violators will be shot. Survivors will be shot again. That wasn't a joke. I purposely did not put the other picture up that gave their Bill of Rights and their Declaration of Independence. These people meant business. We met some people with long guns and said, hi, we just want to make sure you're still alive. And they were kind enough to let us pass and go do it. But you never know what you're going to get yourself into when you deploy. It makes it very interesting. I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to breeze through some of these and I want to make sure we get the questions and answers. Hurricane Matthew. Oh, look how cute Wyatt is. See, there's your photo for dogs, folks. I deployed with both dogs, both Live Fine and HR. And this is on the East Coast. And we got to do some very interesting work. We were tasked to do some water work with my HRD dog, Wyatt here. Where you see us standing, that's Interstate 95. And we were on a special mission to try to find somebody that got washed away in a vehicle. And so we ended up having to get in the boat and to go do our work. And the nice thing was everybody came home. But yeah, you just never know what you're going to see. You never think that you're going to be on the interstate and interstate's gone and you're out there floating around in a boat looking for somebody. But being a canine handler is not always just about searching your dogs. Hurricane Matthew, I got tasked because I was a canine handler to go rescue domestic dogs from all the homes that were flooded and the people evacuated. So we got into large, high-profile vehicles, got into our hip waders and our dry suits, bolt cutters, because a lot of these dogs were chained to trees, and went and rescued a whole bunch of domesticated dogs. While my dog stayed behind, we went out there to go ensure that the people that had to evacuate, that their pets came home. And there was no reason for those dogs to have, dogs and cats, to have to perish during the deployment. So the task force made the decision that we're going to go on humanitarian aid and we're going to go rescue all these dogs. So again, being a canine handler doesn't mean my only job is to work my dog. I'm a teammate, team player. I'm an asset to the team. So we go out there and we do what we have to do. And that's, again, everybody came home. These pups all got wonderful lives and got adopted out. There's Ben and Wyatt on the John Deere. That was part of our mode of transportation. It's always fun to deploy with two dogs, two different aspects of the game. but it teaches you patience and it teaches you how to delegate and not make people mad when you're searching one dog and somebody has to watch the other. Here are just some photos of what we were seeing at Hurricane Matthew. These poor people lost a lot. You wouldn't think that this is something that we would search, but we did. We entered a lot of these dwellings with our dogs because there may be somebody in the attic. We learned a lot from Hurricane Katrina about where people go um, during a disaster. I'm not saying it's right or that it's wrong, but this was a high profile home that we needed to get into due to our intel that we received. Thankfully, there was nobody in there, but we did have to go in, send a dog through the window, and make sure that there was nobody in there. No, it's just a blurry photo. Sorry. Um, for those of you that remember Amtrak 188, this is a photo of it. This is a public photo that you can find on the internet. So I was tasked when I was on Pennsylvania's task force for 4 years when this incident happened. This incident happened at about 9:23 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Clear skies, very cool. Um, this driver was driving at an accelerated speed, and I won't go into that detail, and flipped. The rail car is going through here. The engine, if you guys can see my cursor, the locomotive engine is about 220 feet that way from my cursor. This is not train car number one. That is actually train car number two. This is train car number one. This is the car that was behind the engine that was going at a relatively great great speed, let's put it that way. So we got called in to run live find and human remains. So obviously when we got there, it's dark. There wasn't much light. It was all done by headlamps. When I got there with my live find dog, if you watch my cursor, I did a quick 360 with my live find dog because we pretty much got the walking wounded. I was on scene within about 45, 50 minutes from the initial impact. And my dog called no joy, said there's nobody alive when he did his 360. And I believed him. I trusted my dog. So I put him up and I brought Wyatt out. And Wyatt went to work and we found relatively quickly, we were finding what we needed to find. This car here is absolutely destroyed, car number one. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we only had 2 fatalities out of this car. It did have an occupancy of I think about 24 people in there, and somehow they survived. It's a miracle. But as you can see, that's pretty crazy. How do you train for that? Well, you got to think about it. You have to learn from other handlers that have deployed to different things. You have to be an adult and make phone calls and ask questions while you're on scene. I did make a phone call to a prior teammate that went to the Chatsworth train derailment in California. Asked her, what do I do? How do I do it? What did you learn? But yeah, that's just one of the things that you learn as a handler is you keep your circle of friends very close and you ask questions and you never, ever feel that you can't ask. This is train car number 2. As you can see right here, that is part of the track that impaled and destroyed this car. It was pretty crazy. It was awesome to see my dog work at night and work through all this, the food, because the cafeteria car was there. Just the carnage that was out there. It's just amazing what our dogs can do. And they did it very well. We worked, I believe, 36 straight hours without stopping for sleep to ensure that we cleared everything. This is a picture of Wyatt. We had to remove one of the cars and check a certain area. This is about, and you can see this look on the guys' faces. They're beat. I think it's like hour 30. And Wyatt's beat. I'm beat. And the dog did his job. He found what we're looking for. It's a beautiful thing. And this was the memorial that we had for them a few days later. every single man and woman that's in these photos, law enforcement, EMS, fire, search and rescue, all one team, all one badge. There's no look at me. This is people that are somber and not looking for the pat on the back, just there to represent and to feel for the families that lost loved ones. That's the beauty of disaster search and rescue work. That's the beauty of urban search and rescue. Everybody's in it for the same reason. That's to help their fellow person and not what's in it for me. Sorry, sometimes I get on a little soapbox. Oh, Hurricane Irma. I'm going to blow through these pretty quick. We're catching myself. This is Ben. When you go on a hurricane deployment, you got to go to the Waffle House. That and the Crackle Barrel. They're open 24 hours, and we got to eat. This was an interesting deployment. Down in Florida Keys, it got pretty much wiped off the face of the earth again, and it was hot as heck. Just a lot of debris. Thankfully, there's enough time, and everybody got out. But this is why Ben working on long line, and in 2 photos, you're going to see why. So he's still working in these homes. You can see it because all the windows and doors are blowing out. But that's why we chose to work on a long line. This is the back door of that person's house. And if my dog jumped into that sewage pit of an ocean, he would have been out of service. Gosh knows what's in there. This is what you see when you deploy. You see carnage, and you see trash, and you see chemicals, and this beautiful boat sitting there just getting beat up. It's crazy. And then find an American flag, take a picture of it with your dog. But it's not just disasters that we go on. This was a church fire that we had a couple months ago. We had to go on there and search with our human remains dogs due to the transients living in there. This was a butane explosion for an illegal narcotics facility. It blew up again. You're sort of seeing a theme. Human remains detection dogs had to go in there to find the people that were blowing up because of their illegal activities. This one here was another church fire that transients accidentally lit off and caused the roof to come down. Again, having to send our human remains dogs in there. And this last one here was an explosion in a garage, a acetylene torch explosion. Couldn't find the homeowner, couldn't figure out where he went. He actually left, went to the market, left cigarette in the ashtray, and never turned off his tanks, and it exploded. So good outcome. Go out there to look and work, and there's nobody there because he went to the market. Providing medical. So I told you guys earlier, one of the things about being a canine handler is you have to provide your own medical. You have to do your own work. These 2 people here are medical specialists. We're very fortunate on our urban search and rescue teams to have men and women that are paramedics that take a specialized training class. It's a 60-hour class, and they learn also how to treat our dogs. So here they're treating Maisie, and I didn't have to do the work because these fine women were very proficient in what they're doing, and they wouldn't let me touch my dog because they wanted to do the work. We also have to ensure that they're decon and clean. We utilize the military a lot for our decon and our hazmat team. So if you're on a hazmat team, great time to ask questions on how to decon a dog. If you know anybody on the Utah Task Force, if you're in that state, I know they'd be more than happy to help you guys out. That's just another one of the decon trailers that we use just to make sure everybody, for not only humans, but the dogs are clean, but it's also isolated. So the dogs aren't swimming back in the water. It's not leaking out, and we're not causing an environmental hazard. And these are just some of the injuries and treatments that happen on a deployment. Most of the dogs that get injured are treated by paramedics, the handlers, or the veterinarians that are out there. Even our human medical doctors that are on our task force will treat our dogs. Some injuries are treated by the local veterinary response teams that they have in each states. But most of the injuries are usually you'll get will be lacerations. You do get eye injuries. You get a lot of abrasions. You get a lot of hot spots because of the decon, because you're not able to get the dogs thoroughly washed and cleaned. Diarrhea is huge. It usually happens if you're on more than a 7-day deployment. And if you're working in stinky, bad water, it could be going to the campfire, it could be a hurricane. If the dogs are getting submerged in some nasty stuff, they're bound to lick themselves and get diarrhea. It doesn't put them out of service, but as a handler, you sort of have to know what you're doing and how to take care of it. Most of the injuries, lacerations and abrasions, and maybe a third of the injuries that we get will be illness injuries, where they can't work anymore, they're vomiting too much, or they stop eating and there's other issues. And I think, no, that's me and punchy. I think that's it when it comes to the slide. I'm going to try to find a way to say stop share so I can see your guys' comments.
So Eric, I can share some of the comments while you're working on that if you want.
Sure.
McKenna asked, what is in your doggy first aid kit?
That is a great question. So on my canine first aid kit, I have steri strips. I carry basically it's Imodium for dogs, Curlex, pair of scissors, thermometer, vet wrap, and then eye irrigation that you can get in basically it's just saline flushes, and 2 trauma pads. I can pretty much get away with all that, and then I go find my med specs, my medical specialist if I need to get more, or call for the doc to come out. Does that answer your question?
And McKenna, you're welcome to unmute if you have more on yet.
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
And then Scott had a question about the mental and emotional health of the dog after working the scenes. You talked a little bit about that early on, but if there's anything more you want to add to that.
Yeah, so, and that's a great question, Scott. So when we came back, and I'll use the campfire for example, when we came back, yes, I could definitely see a difference in my canine along with myself. So we did what we did for Wyatt, what you would do for your human: relaxation, playtime, observing, monitoring, making sure that he was eating. I'm not sure if he was, if Wyatt was depressed, or if we were there for so darn long in finding, I'm trying to be very careful how I say this, for what we were finding and how often we may or may not have been finding stuff, was probably a little overwhelming. And then to not be doing that probably took a toll on Wyatt. So for about 5 to 7 days, we just did a lot of Wyatt daddy time at the beach, going back to training, and just ensuring that him and I were both able to do the job. But that was the longest deployment with the amount of work that we had. I'd be very interested if there's any handlers that are on here that have a different answer. But I do think that them not being able to work caused some emotional problems. But as soon as we got back into our normal routine, I felt that Wyatt was back to normal. And hopefully that helps, Scott.
And then
Yeah, it
Jody had,
does.
sorry. Jody had a couple of questions here. He says, with Live Find, how does the dog differentiate between victims and responders?
That's a great question. So for what we do, if you're walking, talking, drinking a cup of coffee, our dogs have learned you're not part of the game. It's the people that they cannot see that they can smell. Now, they could be unresponsive people just lying prone, covered by a little bit of debris. But if you're walking, our dogs pretty much have learned you're not the person I'm looking for. Now, with that being said, someone's going to go, well, wait a minute. What happens if it's someone that's walking that needs help? Well, if you're walking, pretty much can talk, even if there's a language barrier, and ask for help. So our dogs pretty much are just looking for the people that you can't see, but you can smell, or that are not moving. They could be asleep and they're going to alert on them, but if they're not moving, our dogs are going to alert. The men and women that are working, because we train in our gear, also know that if people are in gear like that, they're probably doing their job. Um, Example is if I put my uniform on and put my boots on, my dog loses his mind. If I don't put my boots on and I put flip-flops on, he knows I'm not going to work. So the dogs are really smart to figure out what your uniform is and what it means to go to work.
And then another part of Jody's question is, when sent into a building and the handler is not able to follow, how do you train to ensure they search all of the facility?
So that goes back to basic fundamentals of our search and our training and our team. So in training, we always have safeties and people in there, and we never just train at the beginning of the building. So our dogs have learned to cover, and it's not something they learn overnight. This is why you train 4 to 6 days a week and put them in the worst case scenarios and have an observer, or at least have a camera up there. Um, to be quite frank, can we give you 100% that our dogs covered everything with their body? No. However, with their nose, if they're not picking up scent, and they come back and they call no joy that there's nobody in there, that's when you sort of you trust your dog and going, okay, they're not picking up any live human scent. Maybe you go do a 360 around the building just to ensure, or you go through a different window. But it's trusting your dog, but it's also knowing and being an adult that you're training for that, and you don't just put your dog in the situation for the first time when you deploy.
And then Bill asked if there's any more information on deconning the canine, or maybe where he could find more information on that.
Yes, so if you go to FEMA Canine.org, or is it FEMA Canines?
You're talking about the website?
Yeah, is it canines or canine?
I can't remember.
I don't remember if there's an S or not. If you go there, there is the link for Dr. Lori Gordon, DVM, has a link on it on the top page. It says links, and it has what should and shall be in a canine, a decon kit, and setup. And she and Dr. Erin Perry have really good information on that. You can also look up Dr. Erin Perry, ERIN, then a PERRY. Um, those two are the gurus when it comes to decon.
And it's just FEMAcanine.org.
Okay, can never remember.
Look it up. All right. And then Shauna said, sounds like you get called out to all states. Are there so few handlers that they need to go everywhere, basically?
So that's a great question, Shauna. So in the federal system, there are not 50 FEMA teams. I believe we're at 27 deployable FEMA teams right now across the United States, and California has 8 of them. So a lot of the states in the Midwest and in the South do not have these teams. So yes, we do get called out quite often to travel abroad. The state of Hawaii, for example, does not have a federal FEMA USAR team. So this past hurricane season, they teams went twice. Um, for example, Utah's task force deployed to Oregon for their fires that they're having this year. So yeah, there's a lot of mutual aid that occurs. There are state teams that are out there that can do the work. However, those teams do not have the quantity of canines that might be needed. So they will request federal assistance and federal teams to come out, and also they'll request state teams to come out. But yeah, there's not many of us. I mean, currently in the federal system, I think there's 243 live fine dogs that are technically deployable, but not necessarily deployable on the live fine side. And on the human remains side, on the federal level, there are less than 90 canines.
Are there any other questions? And you're welcome to unmute to ask if you have something, so you'd have to type it all in. No? All right. Well, Eric, thank you. That was wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing all that information and the photos and the stories. We can all learn a lot. A couple of things coming in just saying thank you, good information. If anyone out there is interested in the whole USAR canine world or search and rescue world, please feel free to contact me and I can connect you to either the Utah Task Force or one of the local search and rescue groups that are out there. So you all have my emails. Please feel free to let me know. So yeah, Eric, it was a wonderful job. Thanks so much. I also want to throw a shout out to my colleague, Dr. Karen Blackwood, the director of the Intermountain Center for Disaster Preparedness, for helping me kind of keep track of what's going on in the chat and monitoring things here on this.
Thanks, Barb.
You're welcome, Karen. And again, don't forget to fill out your SurveyMonkey survey. I'll be sending that as soon as we're off of the Zoom meeting here today. Really just helps us a lot in our grant funding and also in developing future presentations. And again, if you're watching with a group, please send me the list so that we can account for everyone. Or if you phoned in, text me. I put the address in the chat, but if you can't see it, phone me at 435-640-5039. Don't phone me, just text me. Sorry.
Call her at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right. I won't answer. And then also people have been asking about if there is going to be a video available. I am videotaping all of the presentations. Please respect the need for privacy and don't share it, like don't post it on your Facebook page or things like that. It is for educational purposes only. So I will be sending out those links here. If you don't get something by the end of the week, again, just let me know and we'll get that back to you. So thank you all. A lot of you joined us for all of the symposium. We can't thank you enough for helping us in this transitional year. As you know, we had to make everything virtual, and hopefully, fingers crossed, by next year, by next fall, we'll be able to take this back to a in-person symposium. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Eric, for sharing all of your great knowledge and information with us. And everybody stay safe out there. Okay?
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.